Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm so glad you joined us this morning. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of comments from after yesterday's program. We're also, well, we actually have a stack of things that I would consider updates from past shows. We'll get to those first off. And then I will tell you about my experience yesterday at the J.D. Vance rally in Williamsport. We'll talk about that with maybe a few pictures. So that's coming up in a little bit because I did attend yesterday in Williamsport and got to see J.D. Vance. Very interesting. I had a press pass, so I got to experience a crowd of around 2,000 boo when a different reporter asked a question that was biased. I got to experience the crowd's anger, all looking at my group in the press. I will tell you all about it here in just a little bit. First up, some comments from viewers. Hello, Frank. I just had a thought, and it's probably not applicable to the show, but any thoughts you or the viewers could share on the best way to drop off an absentee ballot? I hesitate to use the post office, but I guess I'm being paranoid, but I am. Well, that's good. You know you're paranoid. I had two waves, sorry. I understand the concern. I'm not sure how that, I've been thinking about this all morning when I saw your comment, because absentee ballot, the way it was originally done, there had to be some circumstance why you couldn't make it on election day. So I don't really think they had, and that would be, and then you mail it in because of that reason. So I'm not sure how that works with an absentee if you're saying I can't make it election day, but here it is in person. But there is that no question absentee that we allowed in New York, which a lot of people are not happy about. We talked about this recently with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. It's basically an absentee. They call it early voting. Not the in-person early voting. They call it early voting where you don't really need a reason for the absentee. If you have that, I'm sure you can drop it off at the county office buildings, the Board of Elections, I should say. And I'm sure you can do the same with your absentee. I'm just not sure how that works because absentees historically have been that you can't make it somewhere in person. You're maybe out of town, taking care of a loved one, something like that. So I would say your best bet is to just go directly to the board, your Board of Elections, and drop it off there. That would be my thought, but if somebody else has an opinion, I would love to hear from you. Next comment from a viewer. Frank, best show on TV. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, and I'm waving. There you go. Thank you very much. I swear I don't make those up. Next up. Our viewer received our Trump stickers Triumph stickers that a viewer had made. Let me see. I don't have them in order here. But that Jack made, you recall, I mentioned these the last couple shows, and viewer asked for some, and that viewer received them and said, I appreciate it. Stuck one on my mailbox, and proudly so. I don't like sticking stickers on my car. I know that's a common issue with people now, and I totally understand that. But we'll definitely make use of the appropriate place for the other one. Again, thank you so much. Oh, no problem. I'm glad to have done it, and I'm glad that it's proudly now on your mailbox, which is a very good spot for it, as a matter of fact. Okay, let's give you some updates from stories we've had in the past. I know a while ago a viewer reached out and said, where can I buy Melania Trump's book? And there was some confusion with the website, so I got the right website and read it on the air. Well, her memoir, Melania Trump's memoir, entitled Melania, has reportedly hit the top slot on the New York Times bestsellers list. So I'm guessing that viewer and many others found exactly where to buy that book. News of Melania Trump's book hitting the coveted slot was shared yesterday by political strategist and commentator David Urban and the former First Lady herself. According to Fox News, Melania Trump also plans to release a special edition memoir that will feature photographs that she herself captured while serving as First Lady and also her life prior to entering politics. So that'd be interesting. And they go through to describe some of the pictures. But Melania Trump's book hits number one on the New York Times bestsellers list. This coming off the heels of Hillary Clinton's, what is it, her third or fourth book about the 2016 election, third or fourth memoir. Not doing too well in sales. All right, here's another update. We're going to be moving quick this morning. Oh, I didn't even do the housekeeping. We're going to be talking, we're going to have two guests today. Well, actually, technically four, two interviews. One is with a group that is doing the Walk for Freedom, which is to raise awareness about human trafficking. We're going to talk with them towards the end of the 6 o'clock hour. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Sheriff Jim Allard. We look forward to talking with him as always. And then on tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. So if you have any questions for the sheriff or for the mayor, it's not too late to get your questions in. Okay, here's an update I think we've all been waiting for. Self-proclaimed super mayor of Dolton, Illinois, someone we bring up a lot on this program, not because it affects us directly, but is a prime example of why you should know who you are voting for before you go into the booth. And especially at the local level, how much they can affect your day-to-day life. Because as you know, with the super mayor, Tiffany Henyard, she has allegedly drained the coffers of her township on lavish trips, parties, etc. It is another example. I use it as kind of a public service announcement to also say that's why we have as many candidates on this program as we possibly can, so that you know who you're voting for and why you're voting for a person. Well, it turns out she's not too concerned with the controversy and the scandals surrounding her term in office, because she has announced her re-election bid despite facing countless controversies during her first term that have landed her under actual federal scrutiny. She wrote on Facebook, attention, she wrote that 4 times, I am running for re-election for mayor of Dolton. Now, she clinched her first term in office back in 2021. She hasn't done much fundraising leading up to Tuesday's announcement. Her campaign, Friends of Tiffany Henyard, didn't record any contributions or expenses between July and September, according to the most recent campaign disclosure report. Henyard, who is facing accusations of misusing taxpayer funds in Dolton, is listed as the treasurer of her campaign. She loaned her campaign $20,000 in March and has nearly $64,000 in funds, according to campaign finance information. The under fire leader is set to face off against Dolton board colleague Jason House, who is part of a team of candidates called the Clean House Slate. He is running with other incumbent trustees opposed to Henyard. House said to the Chicago Tribune, quote, we look forward to Election Day and hope the residents will vote for us to continue doing the work we have been doing. Now, I'll give you updates on town board meetings and how there's booing and heckling. Hey, it does not surprise me that she's running for re-election, but maybe now the people of that town will be a little better versed on her and her style. Now, the Democrat primary would be next February, per the Chicago Tribune. So to the viewer who asked what's going to happen after Election Day, what are we going to have to talk about here on Frankly Speaking? Well, there's one that we can keep in our back pocket that we'll be mentioning on the program, I'm sure. Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dolton, Illinois, announcing her re-election campaign. Also, oh man, we have a lot of updates. Okay, let's go to this one. I mentioned yesterday Liz Cheney's shady, if you will, text messages. And I think it's worth noting because, first of all, her book, Oath and Honor, and talking about the threat to democracy of Trump and et cetera, was all for this show. And I don't know what this show is. I don't know if it's just she really likes being on the Sunday programs. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the attention, being liked by the quote-unquote cool kids. I'm not really sure what it is. It's the same reason why she endorsed Harris. But the New York Post editorial board weighed in on this late yesterday, saying, yet more unethical backroom baloney has been revealed around Nancy Pelosi's hyper-partisan January 6th hearing. This time, it involves current Democrat favorite, ex-Representative Liz Cheney, and the star witness for the prosecution, Cassidy Hutchinson. Now, Liz Cheney is a much-loved figure right now, her father as well, because they endorsed Harris. When I say loved, I mean by the media that tried to badmouth them and destroy them at any turn. But Hutchinson, a former White House aide, testified, among other things, that then-President Donald Trump had, quote, lunged for the wheel of his limousine, allegedly because he wanted to be driven over to join the Capitol protesters, claiming the 2020 election was stolen. She never saw this lunge, mind you. That's critical to know. She was told about it. She recalled. Her testimony was later flatly contradicted by multiple other witnesses. This is one of those examples where I overheard him talking to a family member or someone else told me this, and that's deemed a star witness in this January 6th hearing. Not that the truth ever really mattered to the people in this hearing. And now it seems Cheney, the number 2 in the hearing, and currently touring the country in support of Kamala Harris, played a behind-the-scenes role in getting Hutchinson to offer up the sensationalism. Cheney, as a sitting member of Congress, texted with Hutchinson through an intermediary and then directly, even as she knew that trying to coordinate testimony without counsel Hutchinson had retained, being present, is a major no-no. Around the same time as the text, Hutchinson got new lawyers. The switch-up saw a dramatic change in testimony and eventually claims against President Trump using second and third-hand accounts, per the bombshell release from the House subcommittee that dug up the Cheney texts. Cheney herself knew the move was deeply suspect. She didn't mention it at all in the book she wrote, praising her own supposed heroism in probing the January 6th mess. Yes, this is more playing to her ego. It's the same reason why she endorsed Harris, to get the attention, to release this book to talk about how great she is. Also, Cheney herself told Jonathan Karl in an interview at the time that anyone who tried to influence testimony at the hearing should be prosecuted for witness tampering. How does the old saw go? Anyway, that's what the New York Post said. Look, what happened, this is, again, quoting directly from the New York Post. Look, what happened on January 6th was bad enough without trying to embellish the role Trump played in it. And as more and more sunlight gets in, layer after layer of the scuzziest possible behavior by Cheney and company is revealed. That should shelve the idea that the Save Democracy freaks were ever in it for anything but scoring their own political points. And I would say in this case, stardom in her mind. It wasn't just about scoring political points and obviously a grudge she has against Trump. It's also about, and a lot of it too, I'm sure, is not just because she lost significantly because she turned on Trump. But also, let's face it, Trump had a lot to say about the swamp and some of the decisions her father was instrumental in. So there's a lot of grudges. But I think at the end of the day, it's like a Chris Christie or Mitt Romney. It's about the attention. It's about being liked by who they believe are the cool kids in the media and the Democrats, the same people that are using them and hate them at the drop of a hat if they turn on another issue. It's sad to watch, but I think to the New York Post's point, it was never about saving democracy. It was about scoring political points and making a name for yourself. We have one more update when we come back, and then we'll tell you about the J.D. Vance rally yesterday in Williamsport. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. A chilly morning this morning on Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I haven't even asked a question yet this morning. What did you think of the Fox News interview with Kamala Harris? I think it's interesting that a lot of the headlines at other outlets will say the testy exchange. I think, man, has anybody watched the Sunday shows? Have they watched the combative interviews that J.D. Vance has had, that Tom Cotton, Speaker Johnson, Trump? I guess this one, and of course, there's those in the media praising her for having the courage and the leadership ability to go and confront Fox, or to not confront, to take on that interview. It's really a sign of desperation. She didn't want to do the Fox News interview. It's that her poll numbers, the poll numbers we see in internal polling, showing that she's struggling. We're going to talk about that later on. But what were your thoughts about the Fox News interview? We'll give you a little rundown of what we learned about that interview. But first up, one last update. If you recall, we had mentioned the quote-unquote plagiarism scandal regarding Kamala Harris's book, which actually yesterday J.D. Vance just mocked and ridiculed during that rally in Williamsport. But the New York Times, if you recall, just give you a quick update because I don't want to run too long with this. But the New York Times, realizing that this could be a scandal that has brought down other politicians, notably her now boss, Joe Biden, who had his campaign derailed back in, I don't remember the exact year, derailed for president because of a plagiarism scandal. So they tried to get ahead of it. CNN did, and they said, well, it's not that much. And the New York Times went a step further, saying, look, we gave the rundown of the plagiarism, the alleged plagiarism, to a plagiarism expert, and he said that that's just innocent mistakes. Well, then we learned that quote-unquote expert did not receive all the information, the full analysis from the New York Times. They essentially lied to him and set him up and said, here's the report, here's the analysis of the plagiarism. And he looked at it, but it wasn't every instance, it wasn't every case. Jonathan Bailey, the plagiarism consultant, has now released his full analysis of the allegations against Kamala Harris and found them, quote, more serious than he initially believed. Now, have you noticed there is no follow-up on the CNNs of the world? Now they're just trying to, hey, they did their analysis. Never mind, it wasn't accurate. It's time to move on. No longer a story. Quote, at the time, I was unaware of a full dossier with additional allegations, which led some to accuse the New York Times of withholding that information from me. However, the article clearly stated this was my initial reaction to those allegations, not a complete analysis. So he's trying to cover for his boss, and I get it. Today, I review the complete dossier prepared by Dr. Stephen Weber, whom I have covered before. I also performed a peer review of one of his papers back in 2018. Now, it is interesting to say, they said it was an initial analysis. Well, why would they have not given you the full dossier? Right? I mean, that's anyway. Quote, with this new information, while I believe the case is more serious than I commented to the New York Times, the overreaching point remains. While there are problems with this work, the pattern points to sloppy writing habits, not a malicious intent to defraud. Is it problematic? Yes. But is it also not the wholesale fraud that many have claimed it to be? It sits somewhere between what the two sides want it to be. To be clear, while Bailey continued to argue that the examples were more akin to sloppy work or negligence rather than malice from Harris, he conceded some, specifically 2 paragraphs, copied directly from Wikipedia. To be clear, that is plagiarism. It's compounded by the fact that Wikipedia is typically not seen as a reliable source, and according to Weber, there was an error in that information. Ultimately, I recognize that this view will make absolutely no one happy. I don't feel that the book is a product of wholesale malicious plagiarism, nor do I think it's free from problems. No matter your side, this will be an unsatisfactory answer. All right, tongue-tied. But there is your update on that story. When we come back, we're going to tell you about the J.D. Vance rally in Williamsport yesterday. Also, after that, we're going to be talking with the group A21, Walk for Freedom. There's a human, I can actually put it up on the screen. There's not much information on it, but human trafficking, raising awareness. If you see on the bottom there, it kind of blends in, but there's a Walk for Freedom this Saturday, and it starts in Centerway Square. This is a global project, a global walk. And the local one is right here in Corning Centerway Square. We're going to learn all about that a little bit later on. And again, Sheriff Jim Allard coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, let me know. What'd you think? Fox Harris? What are your thoughts? What are your initial reactions? Harris, I know Drudge Report has the headline, what is it? Cat eats Fox or something? So what are your thoughts? Let me know. The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Jack writes in, the creator of the bumper stickers, and said, I tell everyone to put them in the rear window. Yeah, that's a good point. Tape them to your rear window, then they're easy to remove if you want to at any point. Okay, let's talk about J.D. Vance. He had a rally in Pennsylvania, and it was in Williamsport. And as typical with rallies, this is no surprise. Well, sit back. I'm going to tell the story. So I saw that he was coming, and it was, just I think I learned it on Monday maybe. So I signed up for a press pass, which is not the easiest thing to do. But I had the opportunity to get press passes for 2 Trump rallies, one in Las Vegas, Nevada, of all places, and one in Rochester, New York, back when I was in radio. So I kind of knew the process. I filled it out, and I was approved. So I headed out yesterday a little early after the program, because one thing people don't realize, whether you attend or whether you're with the press, you've got to get to one of these rallies early. To give you an idea, if I were to set up a camera, I would have had to been in Williamsport at 10 a.m. for a 3 o'clock speech, just to give you an idea. But I wasn't setting up a camera, so it was a little bit later. I didn't have to be there till I think 11:45, something like that. So pull up, and I have a media parking pass. So take my GPS, and it keeps sending me all around the town. Nope, and this street closed, this street closed, this street closed. So I finally ask a gentleman, and he says, yeah, Secret Service, get this. It's probably, I don't know, probably a full city block. I was going to say probably bigger than a full city block. What they did when the cameras and everybody set up, and they had to do a full sweep of the whole grounds, the Secret Service. This is really impressive, by the way, the Secret Service. So anyway, so they do a full sweep, and they hadn't opened the road yet because they weren't done with a sweep. So finally, after sitting kind of in line, I was in the 15-minute loading zone at a hotel. They were kind enough to let a group of us stay with our hazards on. They finally let us in. And as I pull up, they see my pass. They go, okay, move up. But just so you know, the next people you are going to see is Secret Service, and they are going to do a full sweep of your car. I said, okay, well, I don't have anything to worry about, so that's no problem. And boy, and it's so impressive what they do, and how quickly but efficiently they do it. I pull up, they say, turn off your engine. Boom, turn off my engine. Roll down all your windows. Well, I had to do that before turning off the engine. Roll down all your windows, pop your hood, pop your trunk. So did all that, and then the dog comes. And the dog sniffs the underneath the hood, gets right in the back. I have one of those hatches, gets right in the back, sniffs all around in the trunk. The window, the line in between the windows, sniffing all that. The dog's all over the car. Beautiful dog. And of course I was fine. Boom. And I thought this is going to take, I planned on 2 hours probably from beginning to end. And my check-in time had already bypassed. So I thought, well, I'm going to go through all this and then not be able to get in. I was wrong. Quickly parked, boom, walked in, got my media pass. And so a lot of people, we all kind of were going in at the same time. What a crowd. What an amazing group of people. The energy in there, and this is very much like a Trump rally, the energy is so reminiscent of going to a rock concert or a concert of a band that you really want to see, where everybody, I will say I made the unfortunate mistake of just being dressed up in all blue in a sea of red. But I go to my little press area, and you're kind of caged in a little bit, to keep people away from the equipment and all that. But it was great. The crowd was so energetic. Couldn't wait to see J.D. Vance. And boy, unlike a Trump rally, which sometimes is notorious for starting a little late or running a little long with other guests speaking, there was guests at the rallies, the congressman from that area, 2 congressmen from that area, an opera singer did an amazing live live singing of the national anthem. It started with an opening prayer. Just an amazing, and they said, according to northcentralpa.com, the arena's capacity capped at 2,100 and was standing room only by the time Vance took the stage at 3. I know that Vance, speaking of the stage, said it was probably over 1,000. Well, he said it's well over 1,000. And I would say 2,100 seems about right. Local citizens, Republicans, independents, and undecided voters began to fill the arena early in the afternoon in anticipation of Vance's speech. Early speakers included North Central Pennsylvania business owners and elected politicians who took turns discussing national and state policy issues of inflation, cost of goods. You get the idea. I don't know. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Congressman Dan Muser gave a speech. G.T. Thompson gave a speech. I'm looking at some of my notes here. I do have to say this. I'm not exaggerating. There's something I don't know how to describe it because it's happened when I went to the Trump rallies too. I don't know any of the people in the press, so there's no one really to talk to in that scenario. But you're in this little caged-in area, and they go to the first local reporter, and this guy's trying to make a name for himself. So he starts asking about January 6th and start asking, will you accept the results? You know, kind of a question that Vance has received probably 1,000 times. This guy, I think he's, I don't know, trying to like maybe move out of the market. And the whole crowd starts booing. But you got to remember, they're booing him, but they're booing everybody in the press. So here I am. I'm used to it by now, but it is remarkable to have a crowd of 2,100 booing what feels like you directly. It's an experience like none other. I tried to get a picture. I could not. I didn't want anybody to think I was mocking them either. I understood their anger. I was right along with them because the question was so biased and so loaded that I totally understood. One other thing before I show you the photos, and just this goes to another point about Pennsylvania that I'm going to talk about in a moment, this whole rally. And I'm not just telling you about my vacation trip, right? One of these type of things. But I just got to tell you, on the ground in Pennsylvania, the energy for Vance and Trump is so remarkable. But one thing before I show you the picture, I was so flabbergasted. I'll use that term. I'm standing there in the press line. I don't know a soul. Just kind of watching, people watching, which there's no better people watching in the world than a Trump or Vance rally. Just watching and seeing everybody having a good time, kind of like a family reunion. And the most lovely couple came up to me, and I am so embarrassed that they told me their name, but you know, you got the loud music playing. I'm shocked with what they're telling me. So I'm sorry if you're watching right now. I'm sorry I forgot your name because this was so exciting for me. Two viewers, husband and wife, that watched Frankly Speaking, and so much so that I knew because he made a reference to that morning's show. So I was I was so touched by it, and so, you know, kind of giddy in a way, thinking that here an hour and 15 minutes away, that two people watched Frankly Speaking. We're at the rally. It was so nice. We had a nice chat. Talked about the old Radio Days fan from back in the Radio Days, and that meant a lot to me. So you made my day on top of getting to see Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance. So that was just, again, I want to just say hi and thank you for coming over and talking. I was nervous because where we were talking, they had been kicking people out of that area where you were. So when I mentioned I don't want you to lose your seats, I was saying that because you had good seats. Press has good seats because there's nothing. Not seats, you have to stand, but there's nothing really obstructing your view because they want a good angle on the cameras, etc. But talk about up-close seats. So here are the pictures. Enough about that. Like I said, I don't want this to turn into how I spent my summer vacation. But I wanted to highlight it because of how the energy was in that room. It was tangible. Here we go. There's J.D. Vance. That's my view. So as you can see, close. Real close, really. Very happy with it. This is me zooming in, obviously. You see the excitement. You see the passion in his speech. This again in Williamsport in a beautiful arena. And then just because now I'm getting braggadocious, there's my press pass. What do you think? I cut it off there in the bottom, but it does say press. So it was a great time. And again, thank you to the couple that came up and spoke. I would highly recommend that you attend a rally of your chosen candidate, whoever that is, just to get that excitement, because it will get your excitement going. And with, at least with, in this case, with Vance, right on time. I mean, 3 o'clock it started exactly. And then by the time he took press questions, which was really what I was excited for. I didn't stop in to do the press question because it was in my opinion, it was a PA thing, and I wanted PA people to have a opportunity to hear from their candidates. But that's my favorite part, that just off the cuff, any question. He got questions ranging from January 6th to how do we get young people involved in trade instead of going to college, and more of the trade route. How do you support Pennsylvania farmers? And so he's got to have top, and he's not just beating around the bush. He's got specifics. Just very impressive. So we had a blast, and that ties in with a piece from Josh Christensen at the New York Post saying that Pennsylvania Democrats are angry and upset with Harris's campaign. Here we are just a few weeks out, because they believe that she is AWOL and that she's being out-messaged by Trump and Vance. We're going to talk about that because I can see why. With the media coverage of that and the people that attended on a random Wednesday afternoon, there's clearly that excitement in Pennsylvania. So if you're a PA resident and you were able to go, let me know. But if you're a PA resident, what do you feel on the ground there when it comes to kind of just that gut feeling of which direction PA is going? Because most people believe that the way PA goes is the way the White House goes. All right, we got to take a break. I'm running late all morning long. I can tell it's going to be one of those mornings. Stay with us. Thank you, as always, to Boss Security for bringing us the roof cam. I'm so glad that it's back. Welcome back, by the way, to Frankly Speaking. Some comments coming in this morning. Let's go right to them. Great show so far, Frank. Well, thank you. Love your comments and stories about your press experiences. Wow. Love the details of your Vance rally. Your third description felt like I was there. Great pictures. Thank you. Let me just say, just quickly, because I don't know if I brought up this point enough, kudos to Secret Service. What an amazing job that they did. And the security that is in that place, I don't know what the final count would be, but if I had to guess, it was at every turn there had to be, I don't know, 30. It wasn't a huge arena. 30, 40, just kind of milling around, looking around. It was so impressive. A different comment. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I'm glad that you were able to go to the Vance rally. Sorry you got booed because you were hanging with the media. But remember that Jesus used to hang out with sinners. It took the same heat. Yes, that's why I appreciated it. Not a hard feeling in the world about being booed, because I would have, if I was on the other side of that cage, I probably would have been doing the same thing. So I totally get it. It's just a unique experience, and one that I don't know why. Call me, I don't even know what the word is that I would use. A glutton for punishment. I think that part is hilarious. But Pennsylvania Democrats, because that's where this, of course, rally was, are upset that Harris is being out-messaged by Trump and Vance. One operative said Wednesday that the vice president and her allies are falling down on the job of reaching out to non-white voters who in 2020 helped push Biden over the top. Again, this is anonymous sources coming to the New York Post, so keep that in mind. I always question anonymous sources, but they could do a better job connecting with voters of color. And I think that the reason that they are struggling with that is not tapping into our local elected officials, those trusted messengers at the bottom of the ticket, or in the municipal roles, such as the mayor. Some of it's just basic political work that you can expect on a campaign. Like if you are in a Democratic state representative's district, they are typically invited to the event. And there are a number of instances where that hasn't happened. And yeah, that's really politics 101. Business manager for the Philadelphia Building and Construction Trades Council Labor said that he has a concern about Nikki Lou, who is the campaign manager for Harris in Pennsylvania, saying that Lou is AWOL and empowers a culture within the campaign that leaves them feeling ignored or even disrespected. Democratic Easton Mayor Salvatore Panto Jr. said, I think the Democrats are being out-messaged by the Republicans. In the one commercial where Kamala Harris is saying, well, that's Bidenomics, I think that is hurting this because I think the Trump campaign has done a much better job of saying things are really bad. And that was a point that J.D. Vance was making yesterday. I think he's so on point with his messaging that you go home and you go, yeah, things are bad, but he brings it up with humor and grace. So I can understand where Pennsylvanians, and if you're from Pennsylvania, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I think that Nikki is not deserving of all the blame. That's, again, the campaign manager from Pennsylvania. But at the end of the day, she is and has made herself the front of the campaign. At some point, the buck has to stop with you. Finally, before we go to our friends at A21, which is a walk for freedom to raise awareness for human trafficking, Joe Concha says, J.D. Vance's burns of the media elite reveal how siloed they are from reality. Gallup's annual survey of civics and political trust, which we mentioned yesterday, so this is also an update, said that media is currently America's least trusted institution. And J.D. Vance is showing America why that is. Vance in recent weeks has repeatedly schooled anchors, hosts, and reporters in basic facts about the economy, the law, and other core topics, demonstrating again and again how siloed they have become from ordinary Americans, meaning the media. So when they said it was a testy exchange between Brett Baer and Kamala Harris yesterday on Fox, this is what J.D. Vance is doing every day. And speaking to that rally, those questions range from local issues from the press to national issues, and he's ready. Just there's no pre-selected questions. Let me tell you, you can tell by the nature of the questions. Either they wall themselves off, meaning the media, from sources that challenge their worldview, which I think that's part of it, to the point where they simply don't understand reality, or they can afford to ignore those truths because things like crime, inflation, and the impact of illegal immigration does not directly impact them. It's how the industry totally missed Trump's victory in 2016 because almost none of its members spoke to voters in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And by operating in that bubble, these journalists turned activists have made themselves ignorant. And he goes and tells the history. But J.D. Vance, I mean, look at it with Martha Raddatz on Sunday, saying, do you hear yourself, Martha? That only a few apartment complexes in the United States of America have been taken over by Venezuelan gangs? That's the bubble that Joe Concha is talking about. So when Vance and Trump call out the media, let's just say that, according to Gallup, very few Americans are cheering for the so-called Fourth Estate. And if Trump wins the election, his decision to choose Vance may go down as the best one of his campaign. And after seeing that yesterday, obviously we've all watched the rallies and we've all seen it before, but watching that was different. He is that talented and it's amazing. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us because when we come back, we're going to be talking with the group A21 and the Walk for Freedom, which is coming up on Saturday right here in Corning Centerway, Human Trafficking Awareness Walk. We'll find out all about it when we come back. So stay with us. This is, let me take that off the screen though. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And this morning we're talking about the Walk for Freedom, which is this Saturday at noon in Corning Centerway Square. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Could you tell us, for those that aren't aware, what is the Walk for Freedom?
Yeah, so the Walk for Freedom is basically a silent, single-file walk, and it happens globally. It's happening this Saturday. It's happening at 600 cities across the world. Over 300,000 people are being a part, and the whole point is to raise awareness for human trafficking.
Wow, what an important message. How long is the walk from beginning to end?
So for us, it's going to be about an hour for the whole event, but
Okay.
The walk itself is a little less than a mile, so really anybody could be a part.
Okay, good. So for all ages. And I want you each, if you don't mind, talk about how you got involved with A21 and this Walk for Freedom. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. We've been part of it. Now it's the second year.
Okay.
And my role, one of it, I get to serve with teens, and it's such a huge heart of mine just seeing the teens, even to this day, the stats speak themselves. It's 1 out of 4 is children involved.
Wow.
Right now is a big deal, and that includes teens and students, and knowingly even the teens who come to our church, in Hope Church, and in our youth groups, that has had situations such as teens sending pictures, thinking they talk to somebody, and being exploited. We have had multiple times. We talk about here in Corning, literally. So raising awareness of it, I think, is such important things, because that's someone else try to take advantages of kids with the internet and all the access to media.
Yeah, and people don't realize how it does affect us here. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I started getting involved with A21 a couple years ago. I'm the pastor of Hope Church, and I became the pastor 3 years ago. And I'm a woman, and there are not a lot of women pastors, so I started seeking out other women. And one of the people I connected with was Christine Kane, and she runs this whole organization called A21. It's all about abolishing slavery in the 21st century. And when we connected with her, we learned that slavery right now is more prevalent than any other time in history, and we're like, what? That's crazy.
Doesn't seem right. Yeah.
How can we be a part? What can we do about it? And so as our church started to get involved, we started to meet people locally who have stories of getting out of human trafficking. We met ladies from Elmira who used to be in prostitution and now have freedom. We have social workers who have told us that Centerway is actually one of the main places that people are exploited from. And so we thought, what better way than to bring this walk right to Centerway, to bring hope right to our city and raise awareness, because the biggest thing is knowing that there's a problem and that we can be a part of raising awareness and helping people find help and freedom.
And to your point, I don't think people are aware that it's in our backyard. I
We
think,
weren't.
yeah, I think in most situations you think New York City or you think some of the major cities, but it's directly affecting us here in Corning, Elmira, the surrounding areas. How did you get involved?
I got involved because I have a daughter who is a missionary in Nepal.
Oh, wow.
And she's there working with an organization that rescues girls
Oh, wow.
who have been trafficked in other tough situations. And it's heart-wrenching. And so I've been there working with them and seeing these girls, that they're young, many of them are young girls, and they've been pulled into this against their will. And so when this organization helps them, they're now teaching them life skills and the love of God, and teaching them that they're valuable, even though they were not valued when they were enslaved and used as objects. And so to be able to work with these girls it's amazing to be able to help them and see what my daughter's doing there, but it's heart-wrenching to know that people are used like this by other people.
Yeah.
And it's not just girls, that we got to see girls and see them grow and be helped, but even there's one of the guys who's part of the organization, he went to Thailand to bring back a guy who was untrafficked for work situations. Told you're gonna have a job, went to Thailand, then you get there, they take your passport and say, oh, we need this for paperwork, it's okay. Next thing you know, the guy's got no passport, he's forced to work against his will. He had to be rescued by a guy that we personally know. He's right there in Nepal. So it's real around the world and right here in Corning.
And for him, he's a foreign guy forced to call Americans for telemarketing. So you think a telemarketer is just somebody
Yeah.
who's like bugging you, but this was a guy stuck in slavery until people worked with the UN and A21 to go and rescue him and set him free. Like, that's just crazy.
Yeah, the real
Why do you
deal.
think this is so ignored in a way, or and that there's such a lack of knowledge about this real serious threat? I don't know if there's a real answer to that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think it's just a far off thing.
Yeah.
Or since nobody that I know is involved,
Oh, okay.
so I don't really care about that much. But to be honest, it's like you realize how close it is to home. Sometimes one of those things until it hits home, you realize how big a deal it is and how much we should have cared before.
Yeah.
And feel like that's why so many people are involved and nobody cares. And that's what the heart of A21 is. Do you see me? And be able to even walk such a powerful way says, I want to show awareness. That's a big problem, and I care.
Yeah.
And that's why the walk is so important to us. Anybody can walk.
Right.
And it takes a little bit of time, and just the impact is so big.
Yeah. And that's again Saturday at noon in Corning Centerway Square, the Walk for Freedom. A couple quick things that I'm going to ask. What does A21 stand for?
Abolishing slavery in the 21st century.
Okay, and what does the group itself do? I mean, you obviously have the walk, you're raising awareness. Is it a regular meeting that you have? Is it something that people can join?
So A21 is one of the missionary organizations that we support at Hope
Okay.
Church.
Oh, I see.
But throughout the year, they do campaigns. They have campaigns through the Super Bowl, just marketing and ads to help raise awareness that this is a problem. And then the big event every year is the Walk for Freedom. And again, it happens globally. Over 600,000 people will be participating in cities across the world. In New York State, there's a couple walks in New York City, but as far as upstate New York, this is the one to be a part of.
Oh, that's amazing. I wonder why, again, it's just discouraging that not more people get involved. How can they get involved in the walk? Is it something that you're asking them to get pre-registered or just show up at Centerway Square at noon?
Yes, currently it's still open, registration is open, and you can do so if you are watching or if you hear the information's a21.org-Corning, or you can also register at nyhopechurch-registration-
Yeah, nyhopechurch.com will get you there. And it's free. It's
Yeah.
free to be a part. Wear black.
Yes.
Okay.
And come make a difference.
I should have asked this question from the beginning. That is my fault. Where is Hope Church located?
Yeah, so we're actually over by Starbucks in Riverside.
Oh, okay. Sure, of course. Everybody knows where that Hope Church is. And everybody knows where Starbucks is. It seems that when you drive by, right? So if people want to get involved, they don't have to be a member of Hope Church. Just come and attend and register. What should they know for day of just before we go? Is there anything they should bring? Maybe just dress warm, dress appropriately?
We'll encourage them to wear something black.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a beautiful day.
Oh,
so
good.
70 degrees and beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the second year we were talking
This is
out
our
there.
second
So
year.
how did the first year go?
Yeah, last year was great. We had close to 200 people, and it was a rainy day. We all had umbrellas, and it was freezing.
Yeah.
And so we're excited this year. I think we have close to 200 again, but everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
This isn't just a faith-based thing. This is an anyone thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. Human trafficking isn't just about faith or lack of or whatever. It's about a real serious problem affecting not just the big cities, not just maybe some other country. It is affecting our right here at home. So thank you so much for being on the show. show. Best of luck on Saturday. Y'all ready for the walk? You limbered up?
Yeah.
Good to go?
Ready.
I would like to also mention maybe something also so on our heart is if you know somebody in this situation, you can
Yes.
reach out to 821. Such important things. Step one, because we know it's happening here in Corning, as we said earlier, in Amar and these regions, and such a raising just not awareness, but actually make a step forward would be a huge deal to somebody.
That's a great
Yeah,
point. I'm glad
maybe
you.
somebody's watching and they feel stuck or afraid. They need to know they're not alone, and there are people who have been through what you're going through, and you need to get help. Contact the authorities. Go to a21.org. There's help, and there's hope, and there's freedom.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm so glad that you're doing this and bringing awareness, and I hope you'll be on again next year. How's that?
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. That's our beautiful view overlooking historic Market Street here on Corning. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up this hour. Thank you to our guests. What an important topic, and I'm sure it'll come up as we talk with Sheriff Allard in the next hour. A couple comments from viewers. Father of IVF, that's what Trump had said at that town hall yesterday. I think it aired. I think it was recorded maybe the day before. Again, how can anyone vote for such a creepy liar? Thank you to that viewer. Another comment from a different viewer, a very, very different viewer. Frank, I really wanted to go to see JD and even had VIP tickets, but was not able to go. Health didn't permit me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. But they continue, glad to hear you went and were impressed. This might have froze up for a second. I think we are back, though. There we go. There we go. Sorry. Froze up. I'm going to start. I'm going to read these comments again because it froze for just a second. I noticed that on my screen. Okay. So someone not happy with Trump saying that he's the father of IVF and asking, again, how can anyone vote for such a creepy liar? Thank you to that viewer. A different viewer. Frank, I really wanted to go see JD and even had VIP tickets, but was not able to go. Health didn't permit me, and I'm sorry to hear that. Glad to hear you went and were impressed. I'd love to hear him. That was my thought. I wanted to see him in person. I'd seen him on all the Sunday shows and various clips from rallies, but I really wanted to see that interaction with the press because I find that very impressive. That he goes sight unseen and just calls on specifically local reporters at first, and then he takes the national reporters. And I can't remember who the national reporter. There was a BBC reporter there, and then someone else, and I can't remember who the other outlet was. But just impressive. Everything, like I said, he answered questions, everything from local, very, very local minutia kind of questions to the national scene. So very impressive. Got some waves coming in. Wrapping up this hour. Stay with us. Hour number 2 on the way. Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We've got comments to read, and we've got to dive into, we haven't even talked about it yet, really, about the Harris interview on Fox. Before that, just a quick announcement, and I meant to mention this earlier this week. This weekend is that special Steuben County Historical Museum Week. The museum trail, if you recall, we had talked a little while ago, maybe a month or two ago, about this, and it's coming up this weekend. It's really interesting. County historian Griffin Bates was in on the program, and he says it's an opportunity to connect with your local community history. All 20-plus museums will be open on October the 19th from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. and October 20th from 12 to 5. This is your chance to visit an unfamiliar museum near you or to visit a museum that has limited hours during the year. Admission to these museums will be free. And if you go over to the Steuben County Library, you have a couple opportunities. You can get the big map that shows each location and a little bit of history about each of them. There is the more handy, maybe to put in your back pocket, the trail book with all the information in it. Again, just nice to have for the history aspect. And then for the kids, a coloring book of the museum. So I thought that was pretty neat too. So go over to the Steuben County Museum over here in Corning. Listen to me. Go over to the library here in Corning and you can get those books if you so please. So I wanted to mention that before I forgot. All right, now Ken was kind enough to again do some dirty work. He watched the interview yesterday with Brett Baer and Kamala Harris. This was, and this according to Ken, this was the biggest waste of time to date. Wow, that's coming from someone that watched every night of the DNC, every debate. She answered no questions, just regurgitated her memorized talking points and bashed Trump. Her main intention was to run the clock out and get the interview over. She tried to stop Brett from re-asking questions by continually talking over him. She went from somewhat cordial to very angry during the interview. My takeaway was that she is a mean, overbearing, nasty person that doesn't want anyone to question her inept abilities. Well, that speaks to why she's had such trouble with employees leaving, something like a 90% turnover rate. Continuing, though, the only thing that was noteworthy was, while bashing Trump, she said that the administration must take responsibility for their actions. I would assume the Trump campaign would play clips of the many problems her administration has created, then insert her making that statement on campaign commercials. Thank you for that analysis, Ken. We always appreciate it. And to your point, Brett Baer says that Harris' campaign tried to steal time from the interview and then even had the VP show up late. So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m., he said. This was the time they gave us originally. We're going to do 25 to 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20 minutes. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up at about 5:15. He noted that Harris's lateness made it a challenge for his production team to get the interview out to start the show at 6 p.m. We were pushing the envelope. So that's how it started. And I could tell that we started talking that she was going to be tough to, redirect without me trying to interrupt. And that is tough. That's an awkward situation for someone doing an interview. And then it gets even more interesting that he said, I'm talking like 4 people start waving their hands like it's got to stop. This is during the interview. That must be so distracting. I had to dismount there at the end. There are so many things, and she maybe should do more of these. Yeah, and that's a point that people made with Walls too, especially after that debate. Go to more interviews that ask follow-up questions. To be prepared, because listen, the media says it was testy, that Brett was talking over. She would not answer the follow-up questions. Baer said, Madam Vice President, they're giving me the rap. Yes, he called the tactics by the campaign icing the kicker, with the way that they showed up late, cut down the time to how long it was going to be, if they could even turn it around. But what I find really interesting after the interview, and this is probably playing to Harris's supporters, they called it an ambush. Senior campaign advisor David Plouffe said the interview was an ambush. Now, first of all, to me, if I'm J.D. Vance, I'd go, you think that's an ambush? You think that was hostile? Watch me on the Sunday shows. But I would also add, how is something an ambush if you agreed to it and even, I think, sought it out? Didn't she look for the interview on Fox News? Because the polling numbers weren't doing well. So, she wanted to go to an area where she would reach voters that she couldn't normally reach. So I don't think you can call it an ambush if you walk into it, right? And accept it. You don't accept an ambush. I thought that was a weird way of wording that. But yes, some have even said it was kind of whining about the way the interview went. They clashed, according to Mediaite. Kamala Harris clashes with Brett Baer. I always have trouble with his last name. Brett Baer on Trump threat. In one of her responses, Harris noted that Trump had floated the idea of using the U.S. military against his political opponents. That's one takeaway. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. It should be very easily handled if necessary, by National Guard, or if necessary, by the military. That's what Trump said. He talks about an enemy within, Harris noted, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people. Brett Baer said, we asked that question to the former president today at the Harris-Faulkner at a town hall, and this is how he responded, and then they aired the clip. Harris went on the site, or Harris then said, you didn't show that, and there's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who have engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy, and in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing and able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. Harris clashes with Fox as she tries to peel away some GOP voters, according to Stephen Collinson at CNN. And again, what's really important is your analysis of this. So if you watched it, I'd love to hear what you have to say. So Kamala Harris didn't get her second debate, so she went on Fox News instead. The vice president clashed heatedly with the pro-Trump network's top anchor, Bret Baier, on Wednesday night in the kind of adversarial, unscripted scrum that Republicans have long accused her of avoiding. No, what Republicans have long had to put up with from the mainstream media. I mean, to highlight how quote-unquote nasty this got is to ignore all the Sunday shows and how they treat Vance, how they treat Trump, of course, how they treat Speaker Mike Johnson, and how they handle Tom Cotton. Harris and Bauer squabbled and interrupted one another as he exposed her policy flip-flops and reversals, and she rammed home her talking points. So typical from her, that's what she wanted to do. That's all she's got is the talking points. We know that. Not really, you go back to that interview that Trump gave with a friendly outlet, Greg Gutfeld's show. But Gutfeld, obviously an interesting sense of humor, a different sense of humor, and the cast members as well. I don't think they're called cast members, the fellow panelists as well. And Trump had the wit and the wherewithal to be able to handle those situations. This was just, to Ken's point, regurgitating the talking points. The contentious clash conducted in swing state Pennsylvania had more in common than the vice president's sole debate showdown with a former president than forensic formal interviews were, where she often stumbled. Saying, "May I finish? You have to let me finish," Harris said early in the interview, using a technique she has employed against male rivals in congressional hearings and debates in the past. The vice president's trip to Fox News showed how she's trying to conjure new turning points in a contest with no clear leader and with most swing states regarded as toss-ups. Trump's decision to decline a second debate with his rival has meant that the final weeks of the campaign lack big scheduled moments that could change the race. And this is new to her, too, because she hasn't been giving interviews. So now she has to come out of the kind of the hiding and give interviews, which is tough to do when you're not ready, when you're not practiced on that. The vice president looked combative after daring to walk into the conservative media lair and struck a contrast with Trump, who is largely avoiding television news interviews in which he will be cross-examined. She singled out his extreme rhetoric and threats. You heard about that. Harris also did some damage control after saying in an interview last week that there wasn't much she would have done differently from the unpopular commander-in-chief over the past 4 years. Quote, "My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. Like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences and my professional experiences and fresh and new ideas." Fox, meanwhile, got hours of post-interview content for its commentators. Its post-debate analysis, for instance, seized on Harris's non-answer to one of Trump's charges. How many undocumented migrants let into the country on her watch? As the network spooled highlights of the interview, it ran a chyron that read, quote, "Kamala continues her tirade against Trump." Baier pressed Harris on issues important to the conservative audience, including tragedies of young American women murdered by undocumented migrants, for whom the vice president expressed deep sympathy, and her previous support for using taxpayer dollars to fund gender-affirming care for transgender inmates, included undocumented immigrants. She said she would follow the law on such policies as president. So that's a quick look from CNN's Stephen Collinson, not what you would call a Trump fan, what his thoughts were. What were your thoughts? Another piece at CNN, Kamala Harris spars with Fox News anchor in testy interview. Again, this is just a typical day for Republican. So to make this a headline shows how easy, when it comes to the mainstream media, the Democrats have it. I'm not going to go. I don't want to fall into the trap of just reading quotes. But Brian Stetler from CNN, he was on the Situation Room. And this goes to show you, again, how easy Democrats have it. He believes Harris's Fox News channel interview, quote, "a sign of toughness and strength." Does he have that same opinion when a Republican goes on CNN, when a Republican goes on ABC, CBS, etc.? Because they get very testy with the exchanges. Is that a sign of toughness and strength? Because then J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have shown time and time again their, quote, "sign of toughness and strength." So they asked Brian Stetler, who's the media commentator, "I'm among those people who worked with Donald Trump, was in the Situation Room, was in the Oval Office with him." This is Elisa Farrah Griffin. and can tell you can't fix bad character. He is somebody that has a historic number of his advisors, his own cabinet officials, have spoken out and said this is a man that we don't think is fit for office. I think that she did convey that point. I do think that's important, frankly, for Fox viewers to hear. That's when Brian Settler said, I think this strategy from Harris was a Google strategy. She wanted Fox viewers to start to Google some of the things she was saying because some of the comments she was making in this interview are foreign to the Fox audience. For example, General Mark Milley saying Trump is a fascist to the core. That's barely been covered on Fox News. She was able to get some of these talking points in. This was the most adversarial interview Kamala Harris has probably ever done. Instead of getting to debate Trump again, she got to debate Bret Baier. And a lot of viewers are going to come away saying, wow, she's willing to do that? That's a sign of toughness and strength. And Wolf Blitzer echoing, yeah, it's impressive indeed. Again, showing how easy, when it comes to campaigning, Democrats have it as compared to Republicans who are always facing adversarial media. Sunny Hoiston from MSNBC's The Beat. She's the ABC News legal analyst. She had similar comments on Harris's performance, saying people are saying that she went on Fox News. This is the first time she's gone on Fox News, that she was in the belly of the beast and she went into the enemy territory. I think she did that because there are groups of people that have been fed over and over again misinformation and disinformation on Fox News. I mean, you have a judge saying that it's entertainment, not facts and not news. So I think it's important that she did that to help those people make a decision as to who is more fit to be president of the United States. I think a response in pointing out that key Republicans, people in his own cabinet, have said that he is not fit. I'm a bit disappointed that what I saw, and this is not to disparage Bret Baier, I have interviewed him and he's one of our colleagues. He was a little bit dismissive of that fact, Bret Baier, I'm sorry. I saw a little of the panel after the interview and one woman said that she came in hot and also said that she became angrier. I thought he came in hot. What I'm very tired of is this trope of the angry black woman. She was not angry, she was in command of the facts. She was passionate. Passionate does not equal anger. So that's the overview there. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Roof Cam and our beautiful view brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Let's go through some comments from the viewer. When someone is from viewers, I should say, when someone is trying to explain their opinion or where they stand on a subject, it is best to use the least amount of words effectively to explain what you mean. Kamala Harris is the complete opposite. It is hard to even listen to her lies and word salads. Thank you very much. Another comment. Has anyone noticed, if you want to know when Kamala Harris is lying, she starts to use her hands and motions to try and distract from what she is saying. Watch and see if I'm wrong. Thank you, viewer. Another comment from a different viewer. Does anyone else notice how much anger and how her voice cracked when she became so upset because Bret Baier actually asked follow-up questions? Yeah, let's face it. It's what threw Tim Walz so much off in the debate and had that disastrous answer about Tiananmen Square, because Democrats historically are not used to follow-ups. Definitely not fact checks, but not the follow-ups. You don't follow up, and that's one reason why Harris definitely likes going to local media outlets, because they're definitely not going to do the follow-up. So yeah, she's not used to that, and it's, she was off of her game on that. Continuing with what this viewer had to say, though, and she said, no, I don't understand what you mean, when there was a follow-up question. If she gets angry at interviews, how can she be the president? She also didn't answer a question with a direct, straight answer. Thank you very much. And final comment to get to, Frank, the wife doesn't usually care much about getting up early for politics. Your show is the exception. Thank you. Hey, thank you. No, thank you. That's just the kind of show that we have. You can weigh in, and his wife sent a wave, so we'll count that. Well, we got the sheriff coming in. So if you have any questions for the sheriff, feel free to email or I should say text at that number on the bottom of the screen. We'll be right back with our guest, Sheriff Jim Allard, with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And into that studio, Sheriff Jim Allard. Hey,
Good morning, Frank.
It's been a little while. That's
It
my
has.
fault.
It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is.
Did you see that moon this morning?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. It is. We do live in a great
Yep.
area. I was mentioning on the show. It's kind of neat when politicians do this. I saw J.D. Vance yesterday in Williamsport. I went up to that, and I love how the easiest line a politician can make is, "Boy, the hills are beautiful this time." Right? and they are, but
They sure are
I'm
right
glad you
now.
mentioned it.
It's kind of late peak this year.
I know, and it seemed
Yeah.
like it was going to be earlier. It's amazing those little leaves on Market Street. They fall like the first week.
Yeah,
They're everywhere,
yeah,
and now
yeah.
they're already off. Anyway, and that's not what we're here to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, it's been a little while since you've been on. How was the Wine Glass Marathon?
It was, I think, the smoothest it's ever run. All components worked well. We even threw in the change in the route up in Curtis. And
How did that go? Because I know there was a lot of concern.
it thanks to an enormous amount of planning, it worked very, very well.
Good.
Seamless.
Yeah.
And the weather was perfect.
Yeah.
The lead runner threw a good time.
Yeah, new
And-
record, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And a new female record,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And it was the spectators. I think the communication was better this year. The spectators knew where they could be, where they couldn't be, and we had very few issues with spectators this year.
The one thing that always impresses me with Wine Glass, because some people go, well, I can't leave my house, or it's tough to
Yeah.
drive that day. There's so many, especially being here on Market Street, so much tourism money that comes in from the Wine
millions.
Glass. I mean,
Millions.
in the morning it's kind of funny because these runners run, so they're here on
Yeah.
Wednesday or Thursday, and you'll see all day, all morning long, people running, and they're spending money on hotels, on food. So I think it's great for our area.
And in talking with them, a lot of them come back for vacations because they're struck by the beauty of the area.
Yeah.
And they want to do more here, and they'll bring their families back. And it's exponential how beneficial it is to the tourism industry.
Is it difficult for the sheriff's department, or you guys got it down to a science at this point?
So I've been doing the marathon this was my 11th year.
Oh, wow.
And we have a great team that meets monthly throughout the year.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's a significant amount of planning. So the folks from Wine Glass haven't changed. The folks in EMO haven't changed. I haven't changed. At least I don't think I have. And but we do see, there's a constant movement in the state police. So it's always bringing the new sergeant that's going to be in charge up to speed, and we're very fortunate right now. All of the leadership in the state police were great to work with, and did a phenomenal job. So our guys, they know it's Wine Glass Sunday. We're all working.
Sorry, guys, but you're used to it, right?
Yeah.
And it's all things considered, there's worse things to be doing on a Sunday.
There
it's,
is.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch it. I used to like sitting in the studio and watch, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always weird at the finish line because you don't know what you're going to see at the finish line.
Oh man, I saw one runner go down.
Oh, geez.
And they ended up taking that person by ambulance to the hospital because
Yeah.
they weren't reviving well.
Oh, my goodness.
So you run 26 miles.
Yeah, I don't know.
It does wild things to the body.
I always joke that if you said on a Sunday morning, "Hey, go drive 26 miles,"
Yeah.
I'd go, "I'm not. I don't feel like
yeah,
it."
it's too far.
I know. I got other stuff to do. So let alone run that. And
True.
you know what? I didn't even start out by asking, how's the golf game?
The golf tournament went
Yeah,
very, very
no,
well.
your golf game. I was asking.
My golf game is terrible.
Oh, okay.
It's non-existent.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. But how the tournament went well?
Tournament went very well. We had great weather for that, and we raised some good money for the Memorial Park, so I was very happy.
Yeah.
And I think everyone had a really good time. We had a lot of positive comments, so
Yeah.
it was well done and well received.
You had good weather too, didn't you?
Yeah, it was
Yeah. I was going to
perfect
say,
weather.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I look forward to hearing about that every year. But
Yep.
so any surprises?
No?
No, everybody. Yeah, the
Everybody-
good ones are good. The
They
ringers
did.
are still ringers, and yeah.
Well, actually, I'm trying to remember who won. It was...
That's how much fun it is. You don't
Yeah.
even remember.
No, well, I just remember Joe Rumsey. You
Oh,
know Joe
yeah,
used
of
to be
course.
the superintendent in Bath.
Yeah.
Every year we've had it, his team's come in second, and they did so again.
Well, that's the big news. Poor guy. One of these times. We got a lot to talk about this morning. So we'll move. So some of the happier things. Now we'll get into some of the kind of more downer things.
Yeah.
We got a comment from a viewer. When will they shut down the illegal pot places that are advertising on the radio? Which I'm not sure why they're
Right.
FCC. I don't think that's legal. But Frank, you're running out of time. Trump owes you an interview. Yes, he does. He does owe me. I am running out of time. Thank you for that. But obviously that's a big issue because
is.
we see other areas like Watkins Glen being able to crack down and doing a phenomenal job at it.
Right.
So what is, I guess, for lack of a better word, the holdup here in Steuben County?
Well, the way they did the law was kind of, trying to say this without sounding critical.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot to get it into action.
Okay.
And the county is not ready to move forward. There hasn't been training of the weights and measures person.
Yeah.
They haven't developed the signage they're going to need in order to shut places down. They haven't contacted Tim unless it's changed. Our judges haven't been briefed
Okay.
on what these hearings will be because there's timelines in the law. Within 7 days, when a business is shut down, they have up to 7 days to protest it.
Okay.
And then the county attorney has 4 days to get it on a county court docket, and then it's supposed to be heard within 4 days with a decision in 4 days. And the judges have no direction from Rochester on how these are supposed to go. The county has no information to share with them. OCM is saying yes, we'll help, but they haven't really done any help.
They've been struggling for the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they've shut down places here in town and
Numerous
had
times.
hearings and haven't been effective in maintaining that. So I think the thought process at the county level right now is wait until all the pieces are in place with the law. We've offered our help. I know Chief Spalding has offered their help.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting, actually. I called a meeting of all the chiefs with the county attorney and with the director of weights and measures and said, what can we do to help?
Right.
We want to move forward. We want to get these things shut down. We've been promising our business owners and our residents, once we have the ability, we will shut them down. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
And the long and short is the county's not ready. So I see, did Chemung's pass?
I did not see.
Yeah, they were voting
I know
on that
I'll have to-
yesterday or the day before. Theirs is structured so that the sheriff is
Right.
the person.
Well, imagine it. I feel bad for the people on weights and measures. You never signed up for that.
No, they didn't. And that was my comment to the legislature was weights and measures will make sure that the ones that are licensed and duly licensed
Right.
are doing what they say, that 4 ounces is 4 ounces.
Yeah, of course.
And whatever the case may be, and that the THC levels test
Right.
within where they're supposed to be under the state mandate. And that what we're talking about with the sticker stores are criminal enterprises.
Exactly. To think that.
And there's already a county agency that exists to deal with that.
Right. Well, that's what doesn't make any sense, because if you just say on paper, you ask somebody, who do you want to shut down these pot places? The sheriff's department or weights and measures?
Right.
Most people don't even know what weights and measures really is.
Right. They're the folks that go and test your gas pumps
Right.
and make sure that
Sure.
a gallon's a gallon.
Yeah.
And, go out through, and they not only do Steuben, but we have an agreement where they cover Allegheny County too.
Yeah.
They're very, very busy
Sure.
doing what they do, and they do it very well.
Yeah.
And
But this is a whole new avenue to ask them to
Correct.
do.
Yeah.
It really makes no sense. And actually, when you tell people, when they ask, because people ask me a lot, why haven't they shut these down? I'll say, because it's with the weights and measures. They think it's a joke.
Right.
When obviously we have ways to enforce this, and it's really it is troubling because, like you said, it is a criminal enterprise. These places aren't above board, and I know it's gotten a little better, but on Market Street, you'd see rappers, and we've talked about this in the past, where it looks like candy.
Yeah. Right.
Think of the I'm sure you've
Yeah.
witnessed it. The implications of that if a kid gets it in the wrong drawer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you get a lot of complaints about the sticker stores?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. So that's why people are
On
asking.
our anonymous tip line, it's at least once a week.
Oh, I'm sure. Because it's just disruptive to the community. It's illegal, and we're not getting any taxes from it.
Correct.
I mean, this is literally
That was supposed to be
bootleg.
the big bonus.
I
was
know.
the taxes, and
So
far there's been none realized.
it's got to be frustrating because you're getting an earful on it, and your hands are tied. You can do literally nothing on this.
Right. And even if we did a full-scale criminal investigation, it's a misdemeanor charge.
Yeah.
And they're open. They pay that, and they're open again
Yeah.
tomorrow because they're bringing in a lot of cash.
A lot of cash.
Yeah.
And I know they had that issue in Chemung, and
Yes.
we saw the news story there where, I mean, it's a lucrative business.
It is. And, anytime you're dealing with that much cash, it opens doors to so many other criminal enterprises. So it remains to be seen where we go with it.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yes.
Let's take our first break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Frankly Speaking, the Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Call them today. Welcome back in the studio. I almost forgot Hesselson studio. How could I forget that?
It's written a few places.
I know. Live and proudly broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, we have the sheriff in the office. Okay, let's talk about a couple issues. First of all, I want to start with the county because I normally start off the whole interview with that. And
Yeah.
people are saying, what's going on? What's wrong?
Yeah.
So what's the update on the situation with the county?
So August 22nd, we finally had the hearing.
Okay.
And received testimony. And September 10th, the final briefs were in. The judge has had it since then, and he will deliver a written ruling when he is ready.
When he's ready. Okay, so there's
Yeah.
no time frame.
No.
Boy, that's got to be kind of waiting. Like, you got to be on pins and needles waiting for that a little bit.
Yes and no. I mean, I feel very confident in the
Sure.
case that we did, and I was very happy I got to testify and actually put the truth out there. And, it's one of those things where throughout all of this, it has been so disappointing to me how much taxpayer money has been spent on this.
This is a long process.
Well, there's a lot of ancillary things that have been occurring with the county trying to justify their actions where they've spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to defend this action, to try and justify this action. And, why?
Yeah.
To what?
What's the end game?
Yeah. It's obviously it started to try and convince me not to run again.
Yeah. That didn't work.
No.
We'll talk
And,
about that a little bit.
We still have work to do.
Yeah.
But I look at this and I think what good things we could have done with all the money they wasted on this.
And the time, and your time, their time.
Well, and the stress for not just me, but my family. And, it's
The
just,
department in general, the morale issue. I mean,
it's brought the agency tighter together.
Yeah.
Because they're not just attacking me now, they're also attacking employees of our agency. So it's brought everybody tighter together. It's helped us be more cohesive as an agency. So, again, I'm not happy that we had to go through it, and I worry about how much money that's been wasted on it. But at the end of the day, I think the right thing's going to happen.
do you think we'll ever know how much money was wasted on it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. I look
Yes.
forward to seeing that number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I know we've said it a million times on this program, when the smoke clears, what was it all for? It makes no sense whatsoever. But,
Correct.
I wanted to mention this because there's a walk coming up on Saturday to raise awareness about human trafficking in our area. And we had a great conversation with a group called A21. And I know there's other groups. How concerned are you about the human trafficking in our area?
Very concerned about it. Anytime you have narcotics trafficking, you have human trafficking. And I've said this for years, and we see it with younger and younger people. And, the county has the Safe Harbor group, which is about bringing awareness to sex trafficking of persons under 18. And, we have some local folks that are very active in helping those that have been trafficked to rehabilitate. And, my hat's off to them, to Potter's Hands and other folks. But it's a sad part of our society, and it takes us right back to the marijuana stores, where wherever you have narcotics trafficking, you have human trafficking, and typically it's females that are being trafficked. And that's a harsh part of addiction.
Yeah.
And it's a human toll that we see. So it's real, it's here, and it's everywhere.
And you look too, and it goes back to something we've talked about so often. But in Albany and New York, they're always tying the hands of law enforcement and then coddling the criminals. And this is, I think, another example of it.
Well, it's another example where they're ignoring victims.
Yeah.
And you look at in domestic incidents since bail reform and the arraign and release program, it's not giving domestic violence victims, the ability to make a plan and the
Right.
ability to get to a safe place. And it ties the hands of all of those agencies that want to help those victims get to a better place.
Yeah.
So,
And you think of, if there's no way to know the number, but if you could think of all the victims that didn't have to be victims because of Ballard Ford.
well, and victimized multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And that ties in with a question we got from a viewer. Kamala Harris claims crime is down. Don claims the opposite. Is crime up or down? Simple question.
So I think what Ms. Harris is talking about is in 2019, crime spiked.
Yeah.
It's not as high as it was. So it's like when a wave crests,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
The wave's still big,
Yes.
but it's a little bit lower than it was at its crest.
Yeah.
As it hits the beach
Right.
and sucks you back out,
Right.
it's still going to hurt.
Yes.
So crime, if you look at crime compared to pre-2019 numbers, it's still high.
Yeah.
Compared to 2019, 2020 numbers, it has receded a little.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're talking about is it's not as bad as it was 2 years ago. Doesn't
But
make it any less bad.
It's still bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's much like inflation. It's a hard topic to try to persuade people because we've all dealt with it. You know, crime
Yeah.
is something that if you experience it, it doesn't matter what politician tells you differently.
Correct.
You know in your heart,
Yeah.
and you see it. I mean, we talk about every candidate that comes on this program. It doesn't matter. We all talk about the homelessness issue. We talk about fentanyl, which we're going to get to in
Yep.
a moment. And we talk about public safety because
Yeah.
people are generally concerned about their public safety in our rural area, in areas
Right.
that we shouldn't be concerned about walking down the street.
Right, and you see everyone is.
Yeah. Yes.
More so than ever. And we're working a case right now that with Canasteel Police Department where I think there was close to 10 burglaries in a space of a night.
Oh my goodness.
And tell those folks that crime is down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's everywhere. I mean, it's not just the bigger cities. Just like with human trafficking, just like with the drug trafficking, it's coming to our area. It's here. It's not coming. It's here.
Well, look at the number of murders we've had in Steuben County
Yeah.
in the last 5 years compared to the last 30 years.
And that's a good point. So again, I think we know what we experience, no matter what they say with stats and crime. I know
Right.
they just changed that one number with the FBI data. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's, and not to belabor it, but they've changed the way in which they calculate.
Yes. Yeah.
They've gone to a new system, the NIBR system, which doesn't take in all offenses, only the top few offenses when
good.
you report it.
Okay.
So that also affects the data
Yeah.
that they're reviewing.
That's kind of like inflation when they say, no, inflation's down, except for your groceries and everything you need
Yeah.
to live, and you're going, wait, those are what we care
Yeah,
about, right?
yeah.
We're jumping all around this one. We got so much to cover, but kind of tying in with that, I know this has been a topic a lot on the program. How is the homelessness issue in this area? Does it seem
It's
to be an
significant.
uptick?
Yeah, it's significant. We've seen a drastic increase in homelessness, and we're seeing housing of homeless people really raise through DSS.
Yeah.
And you see it here in Corning, if you're over on Bridge Street, and if you're out in East Corning, if you're in Gang Mills, you'll see it. And it's an issue that not only are we housing our own folks, but we're also getting spillover from Schuyler and Chemung County.
Sure.
And those people, I shouldn't say those people, but the folks that are in need are receiving services through Steuben County, and they're being placed as best they can, but it's getting to the point where we're at capacity.
And you start to look at the cost. Now, obviously, we all want to help, but I've seen the numbers of the cost for Steuben County, and it's excessive. I mean,
Yes.
it's not a cheap fee. I mean,
No.
and like you said, we're running out of room.
Well, and we're coming into the winter season where Code Blue is a law in the state of New York that if the temperature is under, I forget if it's under 32 or for 24 hours, then anyone who presents has to be given shelter.
Yeah. Wow. All right, we got to take another short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, we have the sheriff. We have so many questions to get to. How about, and I know this is very successful, but I don't want to forget this, the drug take-back day.
Yeah.
That's coming right up, isn't it?
Yeah, the 26th, I
Yep,
believe.
26 from 10 a.m. till 2.
Yep. Yeah, every year we take back hundreds of pounds of unused medication and we take it up to Rochester and get it disposed of through the DEA. And we also use that opportunity to get stuff that other agencies in the county have accepted through the year, and we take it all up for them all at once and get rid of it.
And it's important to know that it's free
Yes,
and anonymous
absolutely.
disposal. Is there anything that people should know before they drop off their prescription drug take back? It's October 26th from 10 to 2 at the Steuben County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, it's for unused medications, not syringes.
Okay.
And
Has that happened?
that has.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And if you want to just bag them up in your car, we'll come right out to your car and get
I
them.
don't have any, I didn't even have you on the camera half that time. I didn't see the sorry. I hear I'm making faces when you say syringes. I look, sorry about that. And too many buttons to push. So let's get into some. Hurricane Debbie, though. I do want to talk about that because that was a great response. And I see the congressman was in the area and there was a lot of activity surrounding it. How's the recovery efforts going?
Really well.
Yeah.
Woodhull is rebuilding at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
And, again, we live in such a great area. Neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah.
I was there the day of, and then went back with the congressman and Senator O'Mara and Assemblyman Palmisano and Assemblyman Giglio, and there were I was talking to volunteer firefighters that had been up for 24 hours, pumping basements, doing everything they can to try and save as much as they can, and my hat's just off to not only the volunteer firefighters but the DPW workers and the county DPW workers. I mean, they were working round the clock to try and get people's lives back together.
And isn't it sad? I mean, this is your second press conference, or not press conference, but meeting. In just it's about many years, right? 2 years, or was that? 2 years to the date.
It was to the week.
No, it's the week. I mean,
it was about a week off from being the exact same date. The difference with this one too was it was in the daytime versus nighttime. Yeah. And I think that's why we were lucky enough not to have any fatalities associated with this one. But we had a plan this time. After the last one, the undersheriff went out through military surplus and got us the same vehicles that the National Guard and Reserves use.
Oh, that's great.
To respond, a high-wheeled vehicle or high-axle vehicle that can drive through high water. And we deployed that for the first time, and it worked great. We were able to extract people from houses and get them out of there. So we continue to look at that, how we want to maintain that and increase our readiness not only for floods but also for snow events.
Sure. And isn't it so sad, though, just as they're getting ready to open the school up after the at Jasper, and then all back to square one.
Yes. And there was a good 20 to 30 inches of water through that school again.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
So let's get away from that. Let's get about a more positive note, but it is rebuilding, of course. Let's talk about the Sheriff's Summer Camp. We talked about that last time, and I know this is near and dear to your heart. You're loving
really
this.
Is. This is something I'm very active in and something that I'm tremendously positive about. Yeah. So the summer camp's open for 6 weeks a year. Okay. And it does a phenomenal job. Yeah. It changes the lives of children
of course.
That wouldn't have that opportunity. But as I'm looking at it, I'm on the executive board for the Sheriff's Institute, and my thought process is, why aren't we using this? Right. It's 1,200 feet of frontage on Keuka Lake. Yeah. What else can we do with this? Yeah. And there's a program that's been going for a few years now for wellness retreats up at Lake Placid and other places where they bring in police, peace, and first responders that have gone through a traumatic incident, and they give them a 3-day wellness symposium where they learn tools to help manage their stress, and then in the afternoon they go out and enjoy the water.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And nature. Yeah. So I'm like, why can't we do this here?
Of course.
It's the perfect place for it.
Yeah.
So I proposed that. It got traction, and now we have fundraisers Sheriff Baxter from Monroe County is working with a team to raise money to create a wellness center on our campsite and a residential place as part of the camp. And the sheriffs across the state are engaged, and we have a wellness committee where we're going to have professional counselors come in and be able to provide these services to those that are most in need, and hopefully have a more healthy police, peace, first responder group in New York State. And it's going to be the only place in the state that does this at a fixed location, so I'm very excited about it.
Great idea. That's great. And also I wanted to mention before we go, because I want to talk politics with you for a second, the jail and the accreditation. How'd that go?
It went great.
Yeah.
So we go, when I first came to the sheriff's office, we would have 1 3-day cycle review from the Commission of Corrections.
Okay.
Because of all the changes in the laws recently, now it's 4 3-day cycle reviews per year from the Commission of Corrections. We just went through safety, security, and HALT, with flying colors.
Oh, great.
And the accreditors said they actually love coming to our jail because it's clean, it's quiet, and it's professionally run.
Perfect.
It makes their job easy. And I was very happy to hear that, and kudos to our staff. They do such a phenomenal job. They really do.
All right, let's have some fun. Let's talk politics. Quick, do you think, I want to talk about your campaign and everything going on locally.
Yes.
Do you think Cuomo's going to run for mayor, though?
I think he's arrogant enough to.
I do, too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a check mark. I think, I know it's New York City, so it doesn't directly affect us. But
it does, because he doesn't do anything that's not a springboard for something else.
Yeah, well, that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, bide his time, do a good enough job, and then is it back to governor?
Yes.
I mean, here's a guy that was going to stay in the campaign for president when he was polling at 1%.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. So it does have implications. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how's your campain going? Running unopposed?
Going
Difficult?
great. Going great. Yes. Get out to vote. Make sure you vote. And there's so many campaigns. I look at the judge campaign right now that's going on with Judge McCarthy running. He's been a stellar judge. I've known him since he was a brand new ADA down here at Corning. A good person, a good judge. We need to support him and get the vote out for him.
Yeah. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. We're going to have him on again, obviously, before Election Day. I mean, he's already doing the job, and it's funny that he didn't know. Like, I didn't even know when he got the job in Corning, that was a crazy race, if you remember that.
Yeah,
he wins that
against Judge Cole.
Yeah, doing a great job, and then I guess they're just like, oh, by the way, you're also acting as a stupid guy. That's wild.
Yeah,
that's got to be an eye-opening
he's
experience.
a full-time judge, so the Seventh Judicial gets to do what they will with him.
That's right. Anything else locally going on that we should be aware of?
Be aware of your local town and village elections, because those are so important, and there's been a lot of apathy over the last few election cycles. We've had towns that have had nobody running.
Isn't it crazy?
For supervisor, nobody running for judge, and that needs to change. We need to step up and make sure that we take responsibility for where we live in our communities.
And I agree, and that's a goal that we make on this program, is to have any candidate that wants to come on, because with the local media landscape, it's tough to find out about a candidate.
Right.
And you can go to their Facebook page if they have one, but that's a little bit different than hearing it right from the horse's mouth.
Has Judge McCarthy's challenger
She was on.
I've not met her.
2 weeks. Nice, very nice. She's going to be on again, so we're going to have both them on, and two of them or three of them, in Chemung County,
right?
And then we have Supreme Court. The court is really big this year. That's the main, because everybody else, you said the apathy. That's such a good point. There's an apathy from the voter, but the people that aren't running, it's sad.
It is,
because these affect your life. Those kind of races the most.
They do. The local ones affect you the most.
Yeah, because you and I can talk all day about Trump and Harris, and it's fun to talk about.
Right, but we're not going to affect it.
No. When you get that, that tax increase, or you get this is where it really matters. So that's why we try to have as many on as possible. But since I just said we should focus on the local, what do you think about the national?
I think it's. I can't wait for Election Day to get here.
Oh my goodness!
And be done with it.
Isn't it crazy? It's truncated. It's a shorter kind of election season in a way because of what happened with Biden and Harris.
Right.
It seems longer than ever.
Yes, it does. And every day brings new accusations. And I'm just going to be. I don't think there's a voter out there that's undecided.
How do they keep
I
saying
really
that?
don't.
When they say they're going for the undecided voter, if you're an
Who's
undecided
undecided?
voter, you're just being a contrarian. You're just trying to be like, I'm an undecided.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
court me, have me at your town hall, because
Yeah.
they're so clearly different.
Right.
That you can't say, and whatever people out there are voting, they're so clearly different. You have
Yes.
made up your mind.
Yes. Yes.
It's not going to be
There's
that
a
last
stark
one.
contrast.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be about who can mobilize the vote the
Yeah.
best. I think that's what the national election is going to come down to.
I don't envy residents who are watching this in PA. The ads there must be crazy.
Yeah.
Driving
Yeah.
to Williamsport yesterday, the signs, the billboards, that alone. But you know how those commercial breaks can
Yeah,
get.
because they, let's face it, they don't want to. Neither side wants to invest money in New York State.
No,
because
no.
it's kind of a done deal here.
Yeah,
And I was at. Well, you were. I don't know if you were at the last committee meeting,
Yeah.
where there were some folks complaining they couldn't get
yeah.
signs.
That's a common thing, but
And that's because the national committee's not going to spend money on New York
No.
State.
No, and that's why I think it was really smart with Mike Sapper-Cohen, who's running for Senate against Gillibrand, to have the signs that has his name and Trump's.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, people don't always do the research. They want that Trump sign.
Right.
So Sapper-Cohen's getting kind of hey, I think that was
Getting the
brilliant.
bang for
But
his
even
buck,
those,
yeah.
you can't. It's very difficult. And of course, 2 doors down, we have the Democrat headquarters here in Corning. So it does get discouraging, I think, for a lot of Republicans out there when they drive by and they see Harris walls everywhere and they see that. But it's a good location, and
Yeah.
that's why it just happens to be in our area. But I think I was talking to former Congressman Joe Semplinsky. I said, even if I got a Trump sign, I would wait and put it in my yard like the last week because it'll get stolen, and not by
Right.
a Trump hater. It's a Trump person that
That wants it to put in their yard.
That's
Yeah,
really where it's
yeah.
at. But you're right. But in Pennsylvania, I'd like to have the money they spent in one day.
Yeah.
And we
Oh.
could retire for.
Goodness.
But anyway, that's enough on that. But your campaign's going good. Is there? I mean, there's obviously you're running unopposed, but is there anything we can do to help?
Just again, I think our key is to mobilize and get people out to vote, and continue to support law enforcement in general.
Yes.
It's so important right now. Every agency is doing great work here in Steuben County. I think we're working as cohesively as ever, and we'll continue to. And the communication is the best ever. And it was funny. Last Public Safety Committee meeting, I'm introducing maintenance contracts for all of the IT tools that we use in
Yeah.
investigations. It's a list of like 10 things that we use
Sure.
all the time. And it struck me as I'm presenting, none of these were in existence when I
Isn't that
started
funny?
my career.
Isn't that
I mean,
funny?
they just
That's eye-opening.
weren't there.
Yeah.
They weren't a possibility or even a thought.
Yeah.
And how far law enforcement has come in the last 20, 30 years, it's a completely different profession than it was when I started.
Yeah.
And, the one thing that's same is we're still helping folks.
That's it.
But
I gotta
everything else has changed dramatically.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I got to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. All right. Join us
done.
tomorrow at 6.